the book, What Myth Are You Living? It's downstairs. It's the Carol Pearson book. The one that this archetype questionnaire comes from.
I think,
I left
you
it
read
there.
it, right?
Yeah,
Taylor?
I read
Yeah,
it.
she read
I'll go
it.
get
The different, you read the different archetypes? And
Yeah.
there's also the other book
the myth.
that's also by her. Both of them are Carol Pearson. Bring them both because that one elaborates the archetypes more. Okay, so what I want to first do is, you guys did the questionnaire. First of all, was it fun?
Yeah.
It's a fun thing. Okay, it took a while? Yeah. So that questionnaire is just a fun thing. I think it's a fun thing to do. And then when you figure out your top 3 archetypes, what I want to do is when we do the astrology in the next couple weeks, I want to align it with your gods or your psych organs. Okay? So remember, every archetype is linked to a myth. And when you get your personal myth, then you're going to know what story you're living. Because you think you have to. Okay, so Chi-Chi, what did you get as your top 3? And then Tanisha and Paolo, look those up so you have them.
I had it.
Okay, what did you get?
I got caregiver, seeker, and destroyer.
Okay, perfect. So now next to caregiver, put Cancer, or the moon. You got seeker. You're gonna put Sag, or Jupiter. And destroyer, you're gonna put Scorpio, or Pluto. So make that note, because what we want to do is we want to see in your astrology chart how these align. It might be, that would be amazing, I don't know if it'll be that precise, but it could be your sun, your moon, and your ascendant. So the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, remember I told you this, is your personal myth. So when I do astrology, the first thing I do, and now we have posters, I'm so excited! The first thing we do is we can see what archetypes we're living, okay? So these may not be the same names as the one you gave me, but pretty much. So you have, Pluto is magician, which is also destroyer.
Yeah.
What else did you say?
Caregiver.
Caregiver, so you have the moon, and then explorer or seeker, okay? And those will be relevant to your personal myth. So in a nutshell, if I saw somebody who had moon, Jupiter, Pluto, the archetype that I would start with in a reading, if this were indeed your sun, moon, and your ascendant, I would say these two are brothers in mythology, and this is mom, and there's a distinct fight. It could be sibling rivalry. It could be a place where you pull yourself or you struggle by being very open-minded and ideal, but also very negative and very dark and closed off. Does that sound like you?
Which two would be brothers?
Jupiter and Pluto are brothers in mythology. And because there's a moon, she's probably torn either between, let's say, a parent, probably a mom, and there could be a sibling rivalry. The whole chart would unfold. But this is where I start getting your story. This is when I start getting your myth. Okay, and the meaning of the seeker and the meaning of the destroyer means that you're in a constant death rebirth cycle. So parts of you have to be very 0, parts of you have to be very 100, because these two gods are very opposite. One rules the sky and one rules the hells. So you see how there's two very distinct energies that are pulling you apart. Okay? So that's how I start unfolding. Hello. That's how I start unfolding your personal mythology. Okay? Do you want to give him the archetype and then he could do it and we can talk about him too?
Yeah.
What do you have?
So mine,
You don't have to, I'm just
I'm just
breaking it
kidding.
down.
mine
Yeah.
was innocent, And seeker.
This sounds like mine a lot. Okay, so what do we have here for innocent? We have Neptune. So eventually I want you to learn this language, okay, so that you're like this. So this is Neptune. You've got warrior. What do we have it here? Mars is going to be explorer. And you have seeker, which is going to be Jupiter, just like hers.
Yeah.
Okay? In mythology, these two are also brothers that fight. However, it has a different taste. It has a different energy, a different feel. Neptune is thrown to the bottom of the ocean, basically horrified by his mother, thinks that he's hideous. So you see the disdain of the mom, which you totally can recognize. You have a brother that was put on a pedestal, so here you have that to a T. And you're seeking, or you're trying to find an explanation, perhaps a godly or an not earthly, maybe a world view that makes both you and your brother belong.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Acceptance is a big
Okay,
one.
so that's going to be a big part of that.
Okay.
So that resonates with you. Okay, Tanisha,
Mine's filled out. Oh, no, it's
what
not.
are the top three?
Caregiver, destroyer, and sage.
Sage.
I'm gonna need you for your class.
Okay, so very similar to Chi-Chi's, except here you have Sage in terms of Saturn. Saturn, Pluto, Moon. Very interesting. What do we know about Tanisha as she talks about in every class that affected her life more than anything?
My class.
Possible.
Her aunts.
Her aunt's death.
Yeah.
Pluto and Saturn are both planets of death. And the moon is someone maternal. So there has to be a taste there of something super important. And it also causes her to be a recluse emotionally and protect yourself. Because these two planets are the most secretive, protective of self planets. And we know from what you've shared that that's part of your personal myth. So you see how your archetypes link to your personal mythology. Yes. Okay.
Me?
Yes.
Do
we do?
My
Let me guess. Caregiver?
actually no.
It's like the top one.
The top one is lover,
Lover. Well,
And-
that's Venus.
and
That's
then
the mom.
and then after that comes gesture,
Okay, that's interesting.
and then creator.
You didn't get mom? Well, this is going to be your agape love. And your creator is your son.
Those are my
Okay.
I'm used to
So, what do we know about Venus? What do we know about the two loves?
She's very
they connected.
sexual.
Yeah, but what do we know about the two kinds of love?
There's the agape love and
The agape is the unconditional. It's the fourth chakra,
So
and then
I-
there's the desirous or the
Yeah.
erotic or the Pandanian love.
Yeah.
And we know that her love is very agapean,
Yeah.
if you will. Okay. So here you have the agape love that's not only limited to mom, but is more global. You have a question?
What's agape?
Agape love is a term that relates to the fourth chakra, that's related to like unconditional or service love for all. So we have in the second chakra, we have more of the pandemic or desirous or erotic love, so more eros.
Obviously, yeah. The right spot for it, yeah.
Exactly. Then we have our self-love. Then we have
Happy
love.
too?
Well, yeah. For certain gestures. For certain gestures. And then you have your fourth chakra, which is more of the service to
That's your heart
others.
then.
That's your heart. So it's like when Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself. What most people do is love thy neighbor instead of thyself.
Mm.
And they don't want to deal with second chakra because we've all been trained that desire is bad. And that's bullshit. And especially from a Taurus, of course you're gonna make that face. So we already saw his judgment from the
Wow,
face, but he's a
really?
second chakra, he's a Taurus. Taurus rules Venus, especially desire is love, it's Aphrodite.
Really?
Yeah.
Yo, my mom hasn't gotten laid in forever.
Well,
And she's a
hence,
Taurus.
her second chakra.
Well, she has by Jesus, but
Yeah, okay. Last I checked, Jesus is not in the flesh any longer. She
No,
needs a
I
man
know.
named Jesus.
Yeah.
Might need medication if she's hallucinating
Yeah,
about
Yes. And that is a thing. That is a thing. It's crazy. Where you will hear people say, I've been with the ecstasy of the Christ and stuff like that. Now,
But that's
I'm not
after my
saying-
dad
Is this mine?
passed.
Thank you.
That's after my dad passed because they were together for 24 years, and so she stuck to Jesus after that. So
Yeah, when Jesus cheats on her.
yeah.
With everybody.
Every man on the planet, yeah.
Jesus has had a lot of lovers.
He's the epitome of a polygamist or polyamorous. technically.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. He does not discriminate.
Oh my god.
So yeah, that's a thing. Now, just FYI, there is, and there are various, I'm just going to speak about her because she's one that I'm particularly fond of. There was a Christian mystic by the name of Saint Teresa of Avila from the back in the 1500s, and she wrote this amazing book. I've talked about her before. It's slipping my mind in a second, but I'll get to it. And something, the Inner Castle. And that woman would float. She would rise up because apparently the levity of her body because of the ecstasy of Christ sort of taking over. So there are accounts in various traditions and various religions where people are sort of taken over, but that's not ecstasy in a sexual sense. Okay, so that is very much an agape type of love, and that's the love that the priests and the nuns are quote unquote supposed to be leaning towards. But the reality is that priesthood was thought of by St. Thomas Aquinas, who was a total whore, and he was just trying to he was just trying to tame his own ways.
Remind me to tell you the joke about the priest.
There was there's actually a priest who just got out of priesthood after 50 years. I caught him like having a midlife crisis because now he wants to like enjoy life and enjoy. My mom's upset over that, but
Okay, so we have agape love, we have the knowledge or the teacher. Now remember, does everyone remember what every single thing in this world is? It starts with a D. This word should be, slips off your tongue. Everything in this plane called the earth is, I'll give you a hint, two sides of a coin.
yeah, I know. But I can't like.
That word should
I
come
know.
dual.
Dual, yes.
Okay, so everything has duality. This is super important for your client, and this is important for your archetype. Because if you have the Cancer archetype, for instance, then it's going to be the 0 and the 100, where you're going to be super maternal perhaps, but you're also not going to be. And you yourself have said you didn't want children. Okay? So it's not that Mr. Pachi is a trickster. It's the duality of which side of the coin are we going to live. Another way for the gesture to manifest is doing. You are constantly doing. You don't sit down. You don't stop. This woman is agile. Her hands are constant. She's cooking, she's cleaning, she's creating, she's this, she's that. So that, you okay?
Yeah.
Your face says different.
Yeah.
So this is also someone who's very agile with their hands. And if we remember, Mercury is the winged sandals, go, go, go. What need is that? What is she getting by doing? What need is being fulfilled now that we have posters? What
there you
need is
go.
being fulfilled by Miss Rapace when she does? Validation. Validation need is always movement. And we know just from stuff that you've shared from your upbringing that your job is school, that is one of those.
Yeah.
Because Mercury rules school. And especially, it rules lower education. And it's the same thing that you tell your kids.
It's funny because I remember now that I never specifically said that to them. What I did say is, that's what my dad said to me. So of course, when you say things like that, you're pretty much telling the same
saying the
thing.
same
You're like, my dad told it to me, so I'm telling it to you.
Yesterday we were in a meeting, and I don't know if you picked up on it, but she made 2 or 3 references. She talked about, later on in the conversation, she talked about her nationality to sort of justify why she kept saying that. But we were talking about, like, thieves. And the person said something along the lines of, don't give people reason, or don't make it easy for them to steal.
Tempt.
Like, don't tempt. Okay? So this was a judgment, this was something learned. And then she said that about her uncle, and then she said something else about another family member, and just kept repeating. And I don't know if you had picked up on it, but I was like, wow, there's a really big theme here. That's a very Pluto. That's a very destroyer type of theme, but it's also a very jester, because remember, the thief, Mercury's the thief. So there's a big theme in this person's life, and she used various family members and various forms of the same comment. And after the third one, I was like, oh wow, interesting. I had a whole different outlook to her after hearing that thread. So you're going to hear people. So even if Mr. Pachi isn't saying to the kids, your only job is school, the fact that you spend hours working on homework with your kids. Hours. I mean, she has me during the day, and then she has her kids at night, her real kids at night. You know? She's always doing homework with one of us.
I hate homework.
But that's the part of the jester, because the Mercury rules lower education. And then the creator is the sun, is needing to shine. But funny enough, the sun and Mercury are what in mythology? I told you the story of Apollo.
Brother.
They're brothers. On the board, we have 3 different types of brothers. So we're talking about rivalry.
Yeah.
Because who here has brothers and sisters? Okay, who here has had some sort of, oh, you're the favorite, or something with their brother or their sister? Every person who has a sibling has that commentary, but it can come in different flavors. A Neptune-Mars flavor is very different than a Sun-Mercury. Can I mention your brother for a moment?
Sure.
Okay, so her brother took over the family business, and that was what he built. It doesn't cause her any sort of stress based on what she shared with me. But in another person that perhaps isn't as aware or isn't as evolved, that could have been a big struggle where she wouldn't speak to that brother for financial reasons. If we go back to the myth of Sun Mercury, he stole the cows. You could have felt offended that he got the family business and did well, but because of her evolution, and the one thing, and write this down, that archetypes nor your astrology chart can tell you is what they're teaching across the hall. Your level of consciousness. The level of consciousness in which you live at is up to you, people. That is your choice to decide if you're going to be the bigger person, if you're going to show up differently. Nobody can determine that. So you could come from your mom, wackadoodle. You can come from your mother who's a whore. I can come from my mother who is only thinking about body image. And the three of us can decide to show up in a different level of consciousness. It does not matter. That is a personal choice. That is free will. So these archetypes and these astrology charts and these personal myths and these personal planets and gods do not determine how you show up in terms of your level of consciousness. Okay? So that's a choice that she made. So we see that there is a sibling rivalry, and how is it handled? It's handled with love. It's handled with more maternal love. Now, there's a sister in the mix too. that doesn't get.
Doesn't she kill the other sister? Or am I doing two different siblings?
Which
Oh, you're
story?
talking, no,
The-
she's
the
thinking about the one that goes down the steps.
No.
The gates?
The Apollo
Yeah,
is
she's not out.
Oh, and Nana.
doesn't.
Tanisha's
Tanisha
mama.
right away, like, no, not that one.
No.
No, there's one that kills the other one for
Right.
power or something.
Well, Inanna is killed by a Reshigal.
No, but I'm talking about
I mean, a Reshigal's killed by Inanna.
in this type
Did I
of
mix that up?
mythology.
No, the first
like,
time.
Yeah.
Zeus screws Venus
Everybody.
or something like no, yeah.
You slept with
But
everybody.
yeah, but
Male, female, animal, vegetable, mineral.
They all got
yeah,
pregnant every
no,
single
yeah,
time.
but he has children, and doesn't one of them kill the other for?
Oh, are you talking about Romulus and Remulus?
Yes.
Okay,
there you
that's
go.
a, that's a,
But,
we haven't covered
yeah.
that myth, but that's a mercurial myth.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good
so,
point.
Yeah. I
So
was
we haven't
thinking-
covered that, but that's where Rome gets its name,
Yes.
Rome, from Romulus,
Yeah.
who kills Remulus.
Yeah.
We see that in Cain and Abel. We see the mythology of brothers, especially brothers in literature, over and over and over. The prodigal son, in Cain and Abel, in Romulus and Remulus, absolutely. Another thing I want to
Yeah,
mention,
Remus?
Romulus and Remulus?
Remus.
It's Remus?
Remus, yeah, it's
Remulus?
Remus. Yeah, it is. Romulus. That's why when you said
Yes,
it,
that's how I learned.
it's Remus. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe we're mispronouncing.
No, he's the literature teacher. He's way smarter than I will
I
ever
don't know
be.
about that.
This,
Yeah.
this myth, the Neptune-Mars myth, is the sun that's chosen over the one that's sort of thrown to the bottom of the ocean. So here you're gonna have a big species of a sibling rivalry, okay? So this is the archetype handout. Now, there's two books, because I did not create this, Pearson Marr Archetype Indicator. And this is the book in which it comes from, What Story Are You Living? And she talks about the different archetypes. But this is another book that's linked, and she goes through her 12. Again, you're gonna find the names different with different people, with different forms, with different little surveys and things like that. But you're gonna see repeatedly over and over and over, because we only have those. So if you wanna look at these, you can look up your specific person. One of the things I really like about that book is it talks about it gives a story, and you know I love story. So it gives a story. Remember when I taught you guys about the orphan girl, the match girl? I got that from that book. When I read that, and that would resonate with the innocent, which is partly mine too, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this story really makes sense. So she does a good job of picking a story for each archetype, so that will help if you want to look up your own. And it also says the strengths and the weaknesses. So you might see certain things. And again, if you can do this with a client, even give them this could be something that you give them even before they even come to the first session, where you have a taste, then you already know what issues are that they're bringing in, and then you can listen for the thread. So you see how I'm trying to weave in different things, okay? Any questions on this particular activity? Because I'm so excited to teach about relationships.
Yeah, what I'm sorry, going back to the archetypes of astrology, you can decide how you show up in
You get to decide how you show up. It's your
Your
level of
consciousness.
consciousness.
Okay.
Super, super important.
Okay.
Because somebody was born to a bunch of thieves or prostitutes or villains or angels does not mean that they have to show up that way.
And they don't.
Okay,
That's
and we have
nurture
free
versus
will.
nature.
Totally, totally. So consciousness is personal and we get to determine. Any questions? Because we're so excited.
Were there supposed to only be 3 hierarchical
Yeah.
totals?
Well,
I
the
had a
thing is,
bunch
what
that
I'm
were
trying to do
similar.
is I'm trying to tie it in with your sun, moon, and your ascendant. And so what I told all of them,
So what do I do if I have
is-
a bunch that are similar, of the same numbers?
okay, well, you're probably gonna find in the chart things that are clustered or that you have a big theme in those, and they're often very relatable. So you have warrior, caregiver, and ruler, and sage. You have those 4
They're all the same
as your second.
personalities, but-
Okay, so jester, you have the Mercury. That makes sense in terms of the teaching. The warrior, caregiver, ruler, sage feeling that I'm getting is a fight, an inner fight between the masculine and the feminine. Because you have that caregiver warrior, that's like a Mars moon archetype, and it's very much an Amazonian. Am I male? Am I female? Am I balancing both energies? Do I need to? There's a mythology of the Amazonians where they rip off their right breast. It's the whole story
It's
of
in the way
Wonder
of the
Woman.
bow, of course.
And so that way they
String, yeah.
So, which is it? And you're very maternal, at least what I see with your kids, you know? But you're also very paternal. You've got that. So it feels to me, just from those energies, and we'll confirm that in the chart. Write down, did you put your information to print the
Yes.
chart? Okay, so I'm gonna do that next week. And then your third one, well, you got lover, but you have all those 24s. So yeah, we would probably see a clustering maybe by sign, maybe a lot of Aries, maybe a lot of Cancer, maybe both, where you might have a strong opposition in the chart. So I'm just testing this out to see if it shows up, because this is how I do astrology. I look at the sun, the moon, and the ascendant, I find that start of the personal narrative that the person lives out over and over again, and then we can start seeing if there's places or where there's places to change and grow, and where we can integrate certain aspects that are at odds, the different gods. So just keep that, and then we're gonna match it up next week. So let me just take a picture, and then we will go to relationships and why they don't work. And it's not that relationships don't work. There are a couple of people in here that are married with longevity. It's the reason of why there's problem in relationship.
Money and
So-
sex, that's not it.
Money and what?
Sex.
Money and sex, second chakra, absolutely. And where's my thread? Right here. That is in essence, you weren't here to hear about the whole Heroes Gamos and how the interlocking circle of the Venn diagram, or the Vesica Pisces, is related to the second chakra and being raped. So that was a great lecture to preface this. Okay. So, after I created the 7 gates, I realized that the same sort of premise could be used. I don't know if I deleted the stuff, by the way, so I don't know where we're
Oh,
going to
well,
be in a few
so far,
minutes.
so
Just let
good.
me know, and then
Okay.
we'll take a break. Then I realized that you can use the same exact sort of theories, and you can bring it to relationships. Okay, so I call this the truth is in the triangle.
Is it a second chakra reference as well?
No, that is a reference to everyone being triangulated because of your parents. However, it does come, where's my, oh, I didn't put it in the Heroes Gamos. In sacred geometry, when we actually look Do you guys remember what diagram is in here? I showed you the picture.
Yeah, I was June.
Right, this is a vagina.
That's what I was saying.
Right, so it actually is second chakra, but I didn't draw, but it was like a diamond with was it the square?
Yeah.
That was like tilted to the diamond, and it brings up all of the 3 shapes that represent the creation of the universe. Square,